Just a quick disclaimer before the podcast begins. We do touch on some sensitive topics this episode, so viewer discretion is advised. And also, be in mind with these conspiracies, it is just our opinion, so don't get butthurt in the comments, guys. We hope you enjoy the episode. It's a bit of fun. We've got a special guest on, so yeah, we hope you all enjoy.
Yo guys, and welcome back to the Taking It Easy podcast. Now, I know that we're going to do a Q&A and stories and conspiracy theories, but we kind of got sidetracked and we've just done this midweek episode on conspiracy theories, but by gosh, it's a good one, isn't it, Pat?
Yeah, we got a little bit controversial in this one. We got a little bit sidetracked, but we love it. We love it. We had Anthony, a special guest, back on. He was on episode 2. He's back. And we discuss a wide range of conspiracies you guys would have seen in the title. We hope you guys enjoy. But we'll be back on Sunday, Rowan and I, doing a Q&A and giving some of our own stories as well. So we hope you enjoy. Enjoy the episode, guys.
Ooh.
Give us a like and subscription if you haven't already. And let's get the episode underway.
You know, take care and peace.
All right, guys, welcome back to another segment of Conspiracies. Alongside me today, I have Rowan, but we have a special guest. Anthony Manoj is back on the podcast. We saw him on episode 2, but I know you love your conspiracies, Anthony. So we got you on for this one. Welcome back.
Well, thanks, Pat. It's a lot's changed since we last met.
Yeah, a lot has changed. I know. Yeah. What's this Zoom thing? This online thing? Yeah. I'm not a fan.
And the fact that we had lunch after after the recording of episode 2, and it was all okay. People were out and about, and now we're doing this over video call.
In a matter of weeks, it's pretty weird.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, it's totally strange. But guys, nevertheless, we're still coming to you with some great content. And today's going to be a really good segment of the conspiracy theories. So why don't we kick it off with our first conspiracy theory? Was 9/11 an inside job? Anthony, I know you've had a lot to do in America. What are your thoughts about was 9/11 an inside job?
Well, this is a little bit personal for me because I was in New York at the time. I was playing college ball for LIU and attending campus there in Brooklyn. So I remember that day really, really well. I remember it happening. I remember seeing the smoke plume and even the after effects of, seeing the firemen covered in dust, the victims handing out flyers to find their loved ones. So it's, it's an emotional one for me. And now, when all of this kind of smoke cleared, there were conversations about, how did the building fall? Why did other buildings fall next to it, or buildings way away fall? And I'm no structural engineer, but I had someone who was a friend of the family explain that there was a couple of buildings that were a little bit further away from the Trade Center that went down. Now, the conspiracy theories are huge on this one, right? Huge. The first thing that I guess they use as evidence for the conspiracy is that the way the towers fell. Now, if you looked at a controlled demolition and how a tower falls under controlled demolition, falls on itself, that's exactly what both towers 1 and 2 went down like. It was it felt demolition. Like a controlled demolition. And you can get that from the vision, right? So that you start going, okay, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe the plane hit the right area for the buildings to go down. Then you start hearing from other people, especially firefighters, that responded that they heard a sequence of explosions. Boom, 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 boom. And that's the exact quote from a fireman. And you can YouTube this, and, it's something that was on news, when they interviewed a lot of the first responders. And then there's the metal of the wreckage where they say, some of this were some of the steel beams, load-bearing beams, were plasma cut. There was evidence of it plasma cutting. Then you start going on to the design of the Trade Center, where it was built to resist an actual attack by a plane, like, a plane being hit. So it wasn't meant to go down. Then you talk about the fact that the owner of the Trade Center took an insurance policy out for $1 million a week or two before the terrorist attack, specifically putting a clause in this insurance policy for a terrorist attack. Then you add the fact that majority of the building, I guess, the amount of Jewish people in the building was low because it was a Jewish holiday or some sort. Some people say that they were tipped off. But you put all of these things in perspective, it doesn't quite add up. And, I'm probably not your conventional conspiracy theorist because I'm not going to believe everything out there. I've heard some ridiculous stuff. But
yeah, of course.
When you start looking at things as far as evidence that's being presented, you go, something doesn't add up here. And it was the precursor for us to go into Afghanistan, then Iraq, and it was a precursor. There's a military leader that stated when this all happened that they wanted to go into Syria. So it felt like it was premeditated. We needed a false flag attack. And look, USA and England have been notorious for false flag attacks.
What are other examples in the past?
1953, Iran.
Yeah.
1963 as well. There was Cuba.
The Bay of
Cuba
Pigs,
was. Yeah, that's it. Exactly right. The US tried to make a false flag attack and say, well, if we can make the Cubans look to be, a terrorist group and, ideological terrorists, then we can get our people to go against them. And that means that we'll be able to invade Cuba for their goods.
Yeah.
Another false flag attack, 1963.
Yeah, and 10 years
was that the missile
that,
crisis or whatever? Or was that later?
That was during the missile crisis, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, the Bay of Pigs was something that the JFK administration was overseeing at that time.
Yeah. Jeez, it's not the first time. So
there's plenty. There is plenty. You can say that the Pearl Harbor attacks is another. Although the Japanese did hit Pearl Harbor, apparently, there was aircraft that radioed in that there was an imminent attack. There was a ship that saw that wave of Japanese aircraft was going towards Pearl Harbor and radioed in. No one talks about these things. It seems that the USA puts themselves in a situation where they can now go into war. And it's happened all throughout history, and we can probably have a whole episode on that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, also with like we're talking about with the false flag attacks, another premise for them to go into Iraq and Afghanistan especially was two reasons, I think. After the 1980s and 90s, when the Afghanis were working with the Soviets were kind of like dying out of that Middle Eastern area. So America wanted to assert their dominance on the world with their military powerhouse. And one of the other reasons is the trillions and trillions of dollars worth in oil, which after 9/11, and lithium.
So people don't talk about Afghanistan. It has the biggest lithium vein, plus 97% of the opium. And the CIA is notorious for using opium. There's plenty of examples of CIA using opium and heroin, especially in Miami in the 80s, to fund their black ops.
Yeah.
And I know this for I know that there's huge opium farms on the ground in Afghanistan because I have a friend who is in the Royal Marines or the Canadian Marines.
Yeah.
And he's been through poppy fields, and he was given orders specifically not to destroy these opium fields. He said we could wipe out the majority of the heroin trade in the world by wiping out these farms, but we're not allowed to do it. We've got specific orders not to do it. And this is from a person boots on the ground.
Damn.
97%.
97% of the world's opium comes from Afghanistan. And one of the biggest lithium veins in the world is in Afghanistan.
So how do you think this links to 9/11 and possibly being a coordinated attack?
This is where we kind of get deep.
Okay.
And what I'm going to go through right now is actually factual. So the Bush administration that went to war after the 9/11 attacks, using that as a precursor to go to war, one of the biggest defense contractor is Halliburton. Now, Halliburton at the time was onshore in America.
Mm-hmm.
Dick Cheney, the vice president, was a director of Halliburton. And while he was in the Bush administration as the vice president, was receiving payments for shares that he had in Halliburton.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Halliburton was one of the biggest contributors to the Bush campaign. And a lot of these defense contracts, you know, they have their hands in both running parties for the presidential election, right? So, you know, that they make sure that there's billions of dollars that gets put into these campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, a lot of the contracts that, you know, that went into Afghanistan and Iraq, and they call them civilian contracts, went to Halliburton. And, you know, there needed to be changes, and there was changes in the laws on who can go for defense contracts because mates were looking after mates. This is actual fact now. The US government had to change their policies on how the tenure process was done for defense contracting. It went to actual tenure process because all of these big boys were getting the contracts, and there was billions of dollars that were getting that was going through these companies. Now, to avoid indictment, right? Halliburton actually moved offshore to Qatar 3 years after you know, they got all the contracts in Iraq. And to flip this around, there were a whole heap of indictments that were put on a lot of very powerful people, rich people, as well as politicians. For some reason, that building, along with the Trade Center, went down, and all the evidence was gone. All the indictments were gone. So, you know, when you start doing the mathematics of these things, it's a little bit too coincidental. And the fact that, you know, someone's going to hijack a plane with a box cutter, a box cutter.
Yeah.
Come on now. Like, I'm not going to say that I'm a hero, and I'm not going to say that I don't know how I'm going to react in a situation, a hostage situation like that. But if all I'm observing is people holding up a plane with a box cutter, I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah, for sure. So what's your standpoint on this? Because it seems like with everything that's been said, there was an ulterior motive behind all of it.
I think so. Look, this is my theory and mine alone, and it's my own opinion, and I'm not basing it with any hard evidence. I'm kind of putting things together. I just believe that, look, the defense companies that put these people into power told them, look, we need something. The military complex needs something. They need an overhaul of equipment. We need new equipment. And I believe that major companies made the Bush administration and its allies go to war. We got lied to about Iraq having weapons of mass destruction. That was a huge failure of intelligence. Almost as big as what went on with the 9/11 attacks. I mean, NORAD, who looks after the airspace in and around North America, they were running a drill at the time to simulate this exact same attack. You've got operators that are asking, hey, is this a drill? You know, and I feel what happened was that this was planned out. The Bush administration had to do this because, you know, these very powerful companies put them into power. They're privately owned companies, so that they don't have to release their books or what they do. And these powerful companies won all the contracts and rorted the country, Afghanistan and Iraq, of its resources and the taxpayers' money to put them there. I heard something, and I'm going to misquote the numbers here, but something as simple as, say, some toilet paper, right? We can go get toilet paper rolls. If people aren't panic buying, we can go to the supermarket and buy a massive 10-pack for $10, right?
Yep.
Do you know how much the markup is when you have a contractor providing the army offshore with toilet paper?
How much?
1,000 to 1.
Oh my God.
Gee whiz.
So you're wiping your ass with,
Golden toilet paper.
$100,000 a roll?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You see what I mean? Like first aid kits that you can buy from Chemist Warehouse. You get stung for thousands of dollars. And they're no different. Toilet paper's no different. Right.
That's mad. I know, like, I'm going to bring up a couple of points as well. So with the whole Al-Qaeda situation, the US actually brought militants from them back into the US to train them and then sent them back into Iraq. That's one point I'm going to say. Another point is on August 6, 2001, in the presidential daily brief, in that brief, there were 4 points on that brief. There was one objective that said Al-Qaeda, and there were 2 areas, Washington, D.C. and New York. There was one kind of one method, which was a hijacking, and then there was one location, which was the World Trade Centers, right?
Why the World Trade Center?
These all came out in the 9/11 Commission, which was a massive investigation.
Financial hub.
Exactly. Okay. Financial hub, and it was like a pinnacle design as well. In America, everyone knew what the World Trade Centers were in America and around the world. It was massive. So to have an impact on a massive financial hub, but also a massive visual hub as well for everyone.
Right.
Okay, so in
sorry,
go on. I was going to say that in a lot of these 9/11 Commission reports, none of them were actually either released to the public. So they're all still secret, hidden by the government.
It's a farce. The 9/11 reports are a farce. Sorry to cut you off there. It's a farce.
That's right.
It took about a year to produce, and you had multiple people who were on that commission that resigned because they thought there was a lot of things that were not covered by that 9/11 commission. A lot of victims have put court appeals in regards to that, and they were all denied. It's a farce.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the other thing was, going back to the structural integrity of the buildings around it, there was obviously, people might not know this, but around the World Trade Centers, there are actually 7 buildings. It wasn't just the 2 big ones. There was also other structures around that had a major impact. But the one that I'm going to bring up, which was a major part of the investigation, was World Trade Center Tower 7. People might think it's small compared to the both of the massive World Trade Centers, but it was actually a massive building. It was 40 stories itself. It was also huge. When that building, or when the Twin Towers came down, right, it had virtually zero destruction on it at all. A little bit was taken out of the corner, but that was it. And then that building came down in an implosion way 5 hours later. And that's important because in that Tower 7, there was a bunker. Well, Rudy Giuliani's bunker in that Tower 7 with all this confidential CIA, FBI information in that. So,
and the indictments
for the World Trade, and indictments, etc. So,
what exactly is an indictment? I've never heard of that word before.
So it's one of those things where the law has found that there is you're doing something illegal, and I believe that's when you're under investigation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But,
and so when
so
when they had all these documents and confidential information in this bunker, for the World Trade Centers to come down, and then all other 5 to 6 buildings around it being either completely destroyed or absolutely obliterated to the ground or had huge damage. This Tower 7 wasn't damaged at all, right? To add on to that, the building actually took up a whole block in New York. So it was a massive building. So to have a little bit of damage out of one of the corners to bring the whole thing down, I don't know if we can put some footage up later, but it actually collapsed 5 hours later, simultaneously onto itself like an implosion. And to have a building of its mass and also, scale, it took up a whole block in New York. To think that it actually was taken down by a little bit of damage out of the corner and then had a simultaneous implosion is a bit ridiculous.
It all, and the fact that aircraft fuel cannot burn through this structural steel and concrete. You've got people who are engineers and scientists say that it's impossible to do that. The heat that requires the structural metal to melt the way it did, they believe that it has to be a higher temperature, somewhat like a plasma cutter, for that to work, or a plasma type of explosion. Apparently there are bombs out there that are similar, where it's like cutting with a plasma cutter.
Exactly right. And I mean, like, there's so much we can talk about, and I know for me, I can definitely see a lot on the conspiracy side, but then I've also it's kind of strange to think that the American government would do something to its own people. So when I went to New York, I went to the 9/11 Memorial Museum, and that's just such an emotionally straining experience. And to hear the phone calls of the people inside the plane to their loved ones and everything, it's kind of strange to think that the American government would do something of this scale to its people.
Yeah, that's because
money talks.
I've often reflected on this, and I don't mean to hijack the conversation because I'm super passionate about this. And it's something that I've reflected on quite a lot, and we just don't have that morally in us. There are people out there that think of humans as just pawns. It is the way it is. Sometimes, you speak to some of the guys that have to fight foreign adversaries, like, say, the Iranians, or, someone who's fought terrorist group. They can't understand how they can get a child running at the troops with explosive packs strapped on. They don't understand that. I think we all need to understand that there are people out there that do things or are happy to do things because they're not morally aligned like we are. And sometimes, the power money wields will make people do some very destructive things.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, in conclusion, what about 9/11 specifically? Where are you ranking it so far on most believable to least believable conspiracy theory?
For me personally, I believe 99% believe that this was an inside job. It was a precursor to go to war, and fund huge companies.
What about you, Ron?
Yeah, I'm up there as well. There's so much evidence and so many videos and everything about how much was taken out of the 9/11 commission, the report, and everything that goes against it. It just doesn't seem to add up quite right. So I feel like at the moment I'm going to put it as most believable.
Yeah, evidence. That's what backs up everything, right? Not speculation. So yeah, no, definitely I'd have it up there. There's evidence to back it up.
Exactly right.
And that's the most important thing. True evidence as well. Like, not just fake evidence. Like, there's actual facts, as Anthony stated.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit fishy.
It is. I mean, I feel like we could talk about it for the rest of eternity, but we don't want to keep you guys here. So I reckon we go on to the next.
We do want to keep them here.
Theory. We do. But I'll go on to the next conspiracy theory, which is, well, Anthony, do you want to explain it?
So the NBA, 2002 finals, Western Conference finals, LA versus Sacramento, right? Now, I remember I was watching this finals because I absolutely enjoyed it. I really liked the Sacramento Kings. They were really exciting, young group of guys. The LA Lakers were doing really well. They had Shaq and Kobe. And, there's this conspiracy theory going around that this Western Conference finals was rigged. They believe that, the referees were told by the NBA to throw the game in the Lakers' way so that the market cap in the finals that they had, because LA has a huge following, it's a bigger market than Sacramento. They believed, because of financial reasons and the market that the LA Lakers command, that it would be a lot better financially to have them in the finals than the Sacramento Kings.
Because it would bring in more revenue.
Yeah, it brings in more revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the NBA right now, that they are, compared to the late 90s, early 2000s, the viewer rate is very much lower than what it was.
Yeah.
And a lot of players now are not going to small market teams. Like, that's why everyone's saying how awesome Giannis is in staying in a small market in Milwaukee, because everyone's going into the bigger ones where there's more money, more exposure, and so on. So, it could make mathematical sense, I guess, to have a bigger market in the finals so that you could get more revenue.
So how it worked was that the referee was giving away more obvious fouls in favor of the Lakers.
Yeah, so in one particular game, Chris Webber and Vlade Divac was fouled out, and you can see the vision. Some of the calls were just horrifically bad.
Was there a formal investigation that took place after the game, or has it just kind of been swept under the carpet?
Not that I know of. So the few years preceding that, I believe, like in the early 2010s, there was a referee that came out saying that he tanked games. There was a big investigation. I believe that referee was jailed for it. He was getting paid to tank games, and he freely admitted it. And he also said there were other referees that did the same. So it is a thing. It is a thing.
Yeah.
In any sport, I'm sure.
Yeah, in any sport, for sure. And I mean, going back to, obviously, it would have huge, marketing revenue for the Lakers, but would it have been the LA Lakers that tanked it, or the NBA that would have tanked it?
The conspiracy theory is it's the NBA, not the Lakers.
Right.
I think it would be very irresponsible for an organization to do that. I don't think they will really reap the benefits of that. I think, the merchandising, the TV deals, all the contracts are in place for an individual team, and all of these teams are owned by billionaires, right? So how much more money can they make from the NBA? They make the NBA owners make their money, I believe, from the TV rights. Some of them lose money. Yeah. So, yeah.
Would you say, Anthony, though, like when you were growing up as a kid, sports changed a lot? Because now I guess we see sport as sport, but it really is a business at the end of the day. Like it's a money-making industry. And I think, do you feel that's what kind of links to corruption? Because it definitely does go on behind the scenes. I mean, people have admitted to it.
Well, I mean, I feel like in America,
but recently, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like in America, because they have if you look at Australian sport, right? We take our sport pretty seriously, and because we don't have a lot of money into our sport, I don't think we have the capacity to be able to, money launder or.
But in America,
tank games and stuff like that. But in America, because their budgets are so big, I feel like in America it's way more relevant, easier to do, because Like we were talking about in the 9/11 conspiracy, big private owners and businesses have an influence on other big corporate operations. And, with the NBA and NHL and, NFL having such big money, it's all about money to them at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think for me, in episode 2, Pat, you were kind of flawed when I said if I had a choice between the NBA and playing in Europe, I'd
Go to Europe.
choose Europe.
Why?
Yeah, and a lot of people are. They
Yeah.
they have the same reaction you do. I feel that if you start looking at European teams, the that I guess the money thing. Yeah, they've got money, but the fans, it's all about the club. It's all about the city, right?
Mm.
It's not about anything else, really. The passion that you have with European soccer, European basketball.
You're saying if a player moves from Manchester United to Manchester City, you hate him. You know what I mean? But in the NBA, if LeBron moves to the Cavs, to the Lakers, to the Heat, or whatever, you're just going to follow LeBron. You're not going to follow the team. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I would say that there is corruption in Europe, a lot of corruption in Europe.
Goes
But
on, yeah.
I don't think, the money thing is a huge thing over there because it's your pride of your town or club. But yeah, I don't know, maybe if it's just, a Western culture thing. I don't know.
Yeah. So if we were to link this to what we were going to have an overarching kind of question or conspiracy of, does sport distract us from what truly goes on behind the scenes? What would your stance be on that, Anthony?
See, this is where I go back in history, right?
Yeah.
All three of us believe that history is really important because we can see the mistakes we made in the past and rectify that for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to Rome, right? Why was the Colosseum built?
People,
Or
entertainment, yeah.
Yep, to give the crowd blood. Now, this was, I guess, conceptualized and put out into the mainstream through the movie Gladiator. But Rome, right, had issues. They had issues militarily because they expanded so far that the Colosseum was built to distract the Roman people from what exactly was happening in the empire. It was crumbling. Give the crowd blood and they will be distracted. So sports, to me, and this is just me being an overthinker. I sometimes think and link things and go, oh yeah, maybe. I feel that, if we distract people with sports, maybe something in the background's happening that we're not paying attention to.
So is this also like keeping the athletes out of it, so they obviously work their whole life to become a professional athlete and train every day, make huge sacrifices for their family, friends, etc. Is that taking out of the consideration that they also know that that's what's going on, or they're just solely in it for the sport? I don't think they know.
I think there is I think of it like a pyramid, or a triangle where the top there's the elite, and then you got the people who do the doing, they're the facilitators of the plan. This is my theory. And they're the politicians and they're the, big tech companies, things like that. And then you've got below them, you've got your athletes, actresses and stuff that give us our entertainment to keep us distracted. So, yeah.
I mean, like obviously I see where you're coming from, because you have like events like the FIFA World Cup and the Olympics, where every single media outlet is, focused on those massive sporting events. And everyone in Australia I know literally everyone in Australia will watch the Olympics because, it's Australia, it's sport. Australia loves its sport. FIFA World Cup, all of South America, Europe, exactly right.
Big brand.
So everyone's so focused on those, massive sporting events that, you do kind of question with what you were saying with the Romans. Like they would give the people the entertainment of the blood they wanted to distract them from their military struggles. I can kind of see where you come from that point of view too.
But also I'm like, well, doesn't this just completely defy the point of the news? Like the news is never going to end. Like there's always news coverage at every second of the day. I know, obviously, things could be going on behind the scenes that isn't said, but there's always going to be the news, right? Nothing changes. Yeah, we have coverage of sport on TV, but at the end of the day, like you put 9 News on at 6 o'clock or whatever, and it's going to be the same. So what's your stance on this? Do you feel like there's like something going on behind the scenes with the news not bringing out the truth? Because it kind of links to that at the end of the day.
Well, I don't think it's all the same, because I think that with this coronavirus, every single news channel is either right or left, That's just what Fox News in America, very right. We talked to Neil Cavuto about it, right? I don't think it's going to be the same. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Anne. I don't think it's going to be the same, because I've been watching the news lately, like the 9 News, and my mum and dad put on 60 Minutes last night. And it genuinely just feels like the government's trying to scare us with coronavirus.
Yeah, for sure.
They're not giving us the facts. All they're talking about is, the deaths. Why don't they tell us their comorbidities or how old they were they obese? When they're talking about these outbreaks in hospital, well, a hospital is a pretty open environment. Of course, people are going to die because they're more vulnerable. Maybe their respiratory system isn't as good, or, they do have other health conditions. Of course they're going to die. But they're using the deaths and outbreaks in hospital as, the main source of trying to scare the people to stay at home.
Well, that's what the news is trying to do at the end of the day. The news is, especially in such times, the news is trying to influence you to act a certain way, because living in a world where we are now, and there's so many people, who might be breaking restrictions, or especially now that we're locked inside, really kind of questioning the world around us. The news is going to do every single thing they can to make people think a certain way. It's just how it is.
I know that Anthony has some pretty strong views on that. So, what do you think? Because I feel like that all social media and media outlets have influence from politicians and stuff.
You always got to go back to where the dollars are coming from, right? So these journalists are getting paid by the channels, right? Each channel has its own agenda and narrative. And I don't know if you've looked into journalism a lot, but journalists who have their own views will align themselves with media outlets with their views.
Yeah.
You look at RT News, the Russian channel, RT News. And, you've got American journalists that work for RT News because they think a certain way.
Yeah.
But where are the small independents? Why aren't we hearing their voice? It's because they don't have the money that's backing them. Now, if I am a journalist and I start to question my stance and my beliefs, and I'm working for the mainstream media, and I want to start questioning things, it's very easy to silence me. You get told your wage is getting paid by us, and you have to comply with the narrative we're trying to push. So, that's the way it is. The people are so, and Rowan, you've heard me say this plenty of times before. There are a lot of people that just live off the money that they receive from their wage, and they don't want to change that. They don't want to rock the boat. They'll stay silent. They'll comply. And, the ones that really have the power that speak out and stuff like that are the ones that have enough money to be able to go, F you, and do what they actually firmly believe. That's what I feel in this day and age, because people are just so paralyzed with fear of losing their income, that they'll they'll do and say and allow a lot of things to happen.
Yeah. So what with that being said, like when it comes to news, Anthony, like where are you more of a guy who listen to more independent views? Do you kind of listen to both ends of the stick and take your own opinion, or what would you say?
I don't watch the news, the mainstream news. And if I do watch it, I understand that is someone else's point of view. Majority of what I learn and the views I formulate is from talking to people, getting information from people that know. There are a lot of people that I will follow on Instagram. Right now we're in a pandemic, so I'm following a lot of people on Instagram that are actual health practitioners. Dr. Huberman's one, and he's kind of he talks a lot about sleep and your body and stuff. I go to the people that know for my information, and then I'll take that on board and I'll formulate my opinion on not this type of knowledge from experts.
So you're more of a science kind of guy?
I am, because I'm a logical thinker.
Yeah.
And if something's not making sense to me, that's when I have to say, no, I'm not okay with this either.
Yeah, 100%. So linking back to this whole thing with like sport being a distraction from everybody, from the news or what's actually truly going on around us, how would you rank that, especially like compared to 9/11? Do you feel like there's as much evidence, less evidence, more evidence to back it up?
Well, less evidence than 9/11, I believe. Yeah, less evidence.
Yeah, but there's definitely aspects of corruption that goes on within sport, 100%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but as a whole, like distraction from everything. Yeah. What do you think, Ron?
I think I'm going to put it as number 3. Because I'm going to put it as the lowest because you could speculate about it. There's no hard evidence that the government's distracting the people from doing some dodgy shit behind the scenes. So I'm going to put it as number 3 just because there's no real hard evidence and it's mostly speculation. Even though I do see the points as well.
For sure. Last conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen. What is it?
Was the moon landing real or was it fake?
We're getting controversial. I love it.
This is something that I love to talk about, but we're going to get the guest opinion. Anthony, real or fake? What are you saying?
This one I have to sit on the fence on. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. The reason why I question some of the conspiracy theories on this is quite ridiculous. But here's why I'm on the fence, right? So there was a big push for America to get to the moon because the Russians beat them into space, and they had a really, really good space program. And I know that was a big push, and a lot of money got funneled into NASA to get to the moon. Now you've got very, very credible astronauts, 3 of them that went to the moon, 2 of which set foot. I don't think they're the type of people to want to be actors in all of this. I don't know. I just believe I feel strongly about military people, and I don't believe that they'll want to be actors in one of the biggest movies, let's say movie sets in the world.
Genuinely, yeah.
Now, here's where things go the other way.
All right, yep, let's hear it.
We went to the moon with technology that's far inferior to this device.
1966, was it? Is that when the moon landing was? No, 69, I think. Was it 69?
Yeah, maybe.
It was the 60s. Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
It was definitely
50 plus years ago.
Right?
Yeah.
Before I was born. So,
yeah.
I can't wrap my brain around the fact that my first computer was a Commodore 64.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the technology, when you compare that in the 90s to what we have now in our pockets, is just insane, right? The difference is insane. Now, my Commodore computer was far more advanced than what they went to the moon with.
Genuinely.
I'm sorry, I just don't get it. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Also, the Russians were so far ahead of the Americans. Why didn't they go on the moon?
They were trying, weren't they?
Yeah, well,
Maybe they were trying to do something.
race.
Maybe they were trying to do something a bit greater. Go somewhere a bit further.
Mars.
Oh, look. Well, this is the thing, right? If you're traveling through space, you want to be like a skipping stone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The technology we actually have to travel through a skipping stone. So the closest is the moon, and then you'll want to skip from there. That's how our technology allows us to travel. So I don't think the Russians would have ignored the moon.
Yeah.
And then there's talk of, the flag flapping in the wind. There's no wind up there.
That was going to be one of my points, yeah.
Also, when, the module was what took off from the moon, the camera followed it. There's all these shadows in the wrong spot. For me, I'm sitting on the fence because I don't have the evidence. For or against, I'm going on the credibility for, because you've got 3 military people, and if you know me, you know that I hold the military in very high regard.
Yeah.
I don't think they would be actors.
Yeah,
and on the flip side, there are things that technology-wise, I don't get it. And why haven't we gone to the moon? And people will say, yeah, it's expensive and stuff, but I'm questioning it. With our technology right now, why haven't we gone to the moon? Or even put a base on the moon?
Yeah.
Well, people say it like cost wise, but then you got guys like Jeffrey Bezos, who's just flying to space for fun, and Elon Musk, who's doing the same thing, and that's just because they have money.
How long does it take to get to the moon? Do we know?
I'm not too sure. Remember, you don't go straight there. You've got to go through an orbit to get to the moon.
Yeah.
I think it takes a week or two.
Do you want to fact check it?
I don't think it's that far.
I'm just going to fact check it.
Yeah, good idea. I think what I'm saying is I'm kind of on the fence like you, Anthony, but I'm definitely leaning to
3 days, man. 3 days. That's it.
3 days. Damn.
Yeah.
That's all right. So I'm on the fence as well, but I'm leaning to the fact that it is fake from what I've seen, what I've heard. So
oh God. Okay. All right. Let's hear it.
But okay,
let's hear it.
Like Anthony said just before, there's no wind in space because it's a vacuum.
Yeah.
So with the flag, why is it standing up with crevices of wind going through it when it's in a vacuum? There's no air or wind in space, right? The shadows as well. They're facing the wrong side to where the sun was on that specific day. Yeah. They're on the wrong side, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Another point is also, if we did go to the moon, why wouldn't we scour it for so many pieces of moon rock and moon soil and go underground in the moon for certain different minerals and pieces when they came back with a couple of different pieces of rock? Really nothing much. If they went to the moon, surely any logical, American, scientists and government would want to have a lot of evidence and a lot of minerals and rocks and different things from the surface of the moon, which they didn't
Rowan,
really come back with.
If I could interject there, Rowan, because you bring up a very valid point I think everyone needs to look at here. You look at Earth around crater points where comets and asteroids have hit the Earth. It's very rich in metals, various minerals and things like that. The moon has been pummeled by these asteroids, so it would be rich in a lot of minerals or materials that we just don't have. So why is it that we're not harvesting anything on the moon?
Exactly right. So that's one of the other points that I had, and then another point was also why why was the sky completely black and we couldn't see any other forms of stars
or
or
anything.
planets or anything like that when we can visibly see them on Earth, but we can't see them from on the moon?
Well,
One of the places.
I do have some solutions up here. The first one that I found,
Changed my mind.
the
Pat.
first one that I found was with the flag, and the flag having like all these wrinkles on it. Apparently, it had been screwed up for 4 days en route to the moon. Like, as in, like the flag was, like scrunched up. So when you open up something, it looks all, dog-eared and stuff like that. Apparently, that was with the flag as well. There's not actually wind. It's just the fact that it was set up that way.
But if you look at the flag, we'll put a picture up.
Yeah, there's
if you
a
look
picture.
at the flag, it doesn't look crinkled. It looks like there is wind going into that flag.
There's a big spot in the middle where it looks like there's wind. Yeah, I know what you mean. And then on the right side where it's like the blue part of the flag, it looks very wrinkled, like it's been scrunched up. But on one side, it looks like a big gust of wind has just like hit it.
Exactly. All right. Well, what's another solution?
With the stars, okay. Both astronauts and the lunar landscape itself are brightly lit by the sun. The sky may look black, but remember, this is in fact daytime on the moon. If you're going to take a photo of a brightly lit scene, your camera's shutter speed needs to be fast and your aperture incredibly small. In that situation, faint objects like stars simply aren't going to show up.
Yeah, but surely if America had the technology, the simple technology to fly to the moon then, well, they had cameras way before the technology to fly to the moon. Surely they would have had the aperture, the shutter speed, the exposure to be able to capture a photo with that amount
The main thing that I'm kind of questioning is the technology, because I know what you mean. Like, okay, yeah, we have invented planes and we had the jet engine and stuff like that. Obviously, had 707s flying in the air and stuff like that. But that, getting something into space is a whole different story. So in my opinion, I'm questioning that. And I'm also questioning, if it only takes 3 days to get to the moon, then why aren't we going to the moon all the time and running tests there and stuff like that? It's just interesting to me because it just seems like all these people have the money and stuff to go to the moon. We've seen Jeff Bezos and all those big people go into space. But what have they done there? They're just, you know what I mean? Gone into space and come back.
And it's like, people are buying and bidding for parts of the moon to be theirs just because they have money. Why isn't it, owned by the UN or, like a world governmental body when you have different individual people or big private companies bidding off for sections of the moon,
Like they did with Antarctica.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, to conclude, I honestly think that the moon landing was a legitimate thing. I'm kind of with Anthony. Like, I feel like if there's military people, I feel like they're not gonna fake it. One of them's gonna speak out or something like that.
But that's the thing, we talk about the military people. Oh, well, what happened with 9/11? Oh, well, they bullshitted it. They did a false flag attack, to go into Iraq for their own purposes.
There's a difference. So in sorry, Pat, but
that's all right. Yeah,
I'm not too sure how you guys. I don't think a lot of people understand how senior ranking works in the military. So, especially in America, right? So, a lot of the false flag attacks, the conversations get held with, I guess the government of the day, and you've got your high-ranking military officials, generals. What we would call here, the chief of the forces
or whatever.
So
yeah.
you'll have one rank that's the highest, right? Usually it's the air chief marshal,
Chief Marshal,
brigadier general.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Navy has.
Air Commodore, I don't know, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
To get to these higher ranks, you actually got to have political influence. In America, for you to be a 1 or 2 or 3-star general, it needs political sponsoring to get there. And a lot of really, really good soldiers that are on the verge of getting the 1-star general and stuff like that, they don't actually get there because they don't have the political backing, and you've got to actually kiss a lot of ass to get to those ranks. So you've got your defense force, and then you've got your senior officials that have to play the political game to get those rankings. So it's not something that you get easily. And if you are going to play this political game, that means you're going to be one of these people that are going to do things that the politicians ask you to do.
Yeah. Interesting. So how does this link to the astronauts?
Well, I was going to say
because I don't believe the 3 astronauts that went there.
Yeah.
I don't believe Neil Armstrong was anywhere near the ranks that you would require to be, I guess, politically involved to get those ranks.
Okay.
And I feel that a lot of these boots on ground soldiers would not want to act in a stage this big. I think one of them would have actually come out and gone, no, you know what, I can't handle the pressure of this anymore.
And now they're retired as well, and all this stuff. None of them have blew the whistle. You know what I mean? Like, they're all kept hush. I honestly think that it's real, but I see why people question it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know. So if I'm gonna rank that, I'm gonna put it as number 2. I think
you really, yeah, okay.
I think, well, I mean, it's just the evidence for 9/11 is so strong. There's so much there.
Yeah.
For the moon, it's speculative, but it's more believable speculation, because one of the points that I raised that Anthony agreed with was, if they went to the moon, why didn't we take as much resource and minerals and things that we could have to come back to study in scientific labs and stuff like that?
There might be.
So
I haven't done enough
number
research,
2.
but yeah. What's your take on it, Anthony?
I'd probably say it's number 3.
Yeah, I'd have a number 3 for me as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd have the sport one in the middle, and then I'd have 9/11 at first. That's got a lot of evidence.
But no, guys, thank you so much for listening to this segment, and we will see you guys in the near future.